I'm here because I am a roaring lion crying out righteousness. Today I want to cover a phenomenon that we would want to try to look at from a historical perspective and a contemporary perspective. Imagine this. Imagine Aretha Franklin. Imagine Aretha Franklin when she wins a Grammy for the song Respect. And she's called before the stage and everybody's cheering her. It was number 1 on the Billboard, number 1 on the Rhythm and Blues. She's now known as the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, right? And Aretha Franklin would say in her remarks, for those that would give praise to her father, C.L. Franklin, but also she would give praise to the homosexuals for supporting her. Imagine that happening. Well, it didn't happen, and it would not have happened in a historical complex. But in a contemporary complex today, a singer with a similar kind of magnitude and, if you will, global reach is by the one named Beyonce, whatever that means. And this past Sunday night, she won an award as being the most, if you will, entitled Grammy winners in history. And I'm going to let you listen to a part of her speech. Now, I think a part of the speech that she's going to give recognizes queers as one of her strongest support groups. Mr. Engineer, do you have that clip? If so, roll it, please. Take a look at this, everybody, and I'll be right back.
I'd like to thank the queer community for your love and for inventing this genre. God bless you. Thank you so much to the Grammys.
So, now, imagine Aretha Franklin saying that. She would not have. Here's the thing I want to do. I want to be able, and I've called her the Gap Goody Queen, and we have some photos of her just showing her, her womb and her, if you will, personal parts, putting it on full display, and wearing tight. I mean, she looks like one of these, what do you call these sadistic women who dress up in leather and they beat men with whips as a sexual experience, and they whip the men, and the men have orgasms. And Matra, you forgive me for not knowing the title, but that's the image she is, that she is a dominant woman, and sex is what she's selling. And she's got, I call her the Gap Goody, because when you gap open your legs, where she gaps open hers, and you get the good stuff, as it were. If that offends you, please forgive me. It is not my intent, but I want to be historically accurate. But she puts on these leather boots as if she's got a whip in her hand and she's got some weak man who has sexual orgasms, and that's what she's projecting. That's who she is. And she's been put up to do that by her husband, Jay-Z, and they have become really a brothel of sorts, and have made literally billions of dollars selling her good stuff. Now, she does have a voice to sing, there's no doubt about that, and she does dance a little bit. But primarily the thing that gets her over is the promotion of the good stuff. And we had a shot of her shaking that thing. I mean, she shakes that thing. I just couldn't imagine Nancy Wilson or Nina Simone, I just couldn't imagine, Aretha Franklin. I just couldn't imagine them performing like that. But we're in a different contextual situation. So let me address that. Historically, we have moved from the anchor of a sort of a moral, if you will, approach to life, primarily based on some biblical ethics and biblical statements, to a whatever feels good, loose, whatever feels good, do it. Kind of, and a younger person will look at me and say, "What's wrong with you? You're old fuddy-duddy. You're not with it." And okay, all right. But it needs to be clear that the world wasn't always this way. The world was not always the way that we now see it. And no husband would allow himself to allow his wife to carry, Lucy and Desi Arnaz, Ricardo, he wouldn't let, Ricky Ricardo would never let his wife, George Burns, say, Pastor Man, don't go George Burns, please, you're doing all right with Ricardo and Ricky Ricardo and Lucy. But there was no man on television, even Ike and Tina Turner, though Tina danced, it was not voluptuous, it was not selling sex under the guise of singing soul. And Ike had his problems. We all know that. But this is off the chain, what they have done. And it has lowered the morals of our young people, and it will continue. But for her to stand up, and perhaps that would, Billie Holiday, perhaps one of the most prolific and well-recognized performers from the female Hamite genre of all times, would have never, I think Billie Holiday would be insulted at Beyonce, would probably call her a tramp. And Claude Lewis, who was Billie Holiday's lover, would probably call Jay-Z just a street pimp from the Marcy Projects who's got a whole lot of, not pejoratively, Jewish money behind him. He's just a regular street pimp from the Marcy Projects in Brooklyn. And, Beyonce is just a tramp. But it's in competition with online pornography. And so it is. And that's the way of the world. People like myself are judged as, if you look at Billie Holiday and Claude Lewis, or Lewis Claude, that I can tell you this, Beyonce will soon fade from the scene because what she is selling is a dime a dozen. Every woman's got one. Some women choose to use their respectively. But she will never reach the status of a Billie Holiday, nor will she reach the status of Aretha Franklin. And let me close by saying this, that Aretha Franklin, that the queers, or the trannies in particular, have made a move more recently to have the song Natural Woman, performed by Aretha Franklin, move from Spotify and from Apple. She won a Grammy for that song. But she was, the queers that are promoting Beyonce are now trying to get her music removed from Spotify because they say it upsets their idea or proclaims that there's only one way to be a natural woman. And the trannies are saying you can be a woman even if you were born a man. It's not true. It's not even remotely possible. It isn't even possible with God. If you are a tranny, you're not a woman. You're a tranny, then fine, but you're not a natural woman. You don't have a womb. And medical science have not been able to discover how to implant a womb inside of a man. It's an impossibility and will remain an impossibility till Jesus returns. But they understand that, but they want to be recognized as women, though they were born as men. I thought I would do that crowing today. It's unfortunate that there are people who will hate my living guts for speaking out against Beyonce and the fact that she's a dominatrix. That's the word I'm looking for, a dominatrix. Put it back up again, put her back up in that dominatrix suit. Again, Mr. Engineer, she is a queen. Beyonce is a queen dominatrix. That's what a dominatrix does. And there are men, lots of men, who get orgasm not from having sexual contact. They get sexual orgasms from men, from women, dominatrix with a whip, with a lot of leather, with leather boots, by stepping on them with their leather. When a woman steps on a man, he's got on no clothes, he has an orgasm. Well, that's what she's selling. That's exactly what she's selling and been selling for years. The other thing is that, and I'm truly going to be through with this, is that there are more seductive videos of Beyonce. We don't have to show any of them, but there are literally more seductive, hundreds of seductive videos of Beyonce that I would estimate that there are at least around the world, and this is very conservative, and I'm just expressing an opinion. I'm not dispensing information. But I would think, and by the way, if you're offended by this, please forgive me. But I want to maintain a sense of literary accuracy. Put it back up again, Mr. Engineer. I want to maintain a sense of literary accuracy, and take the rights of literary artists to be able to express my point. But if you are offended by this, please forgive me. But I would imagine conservatively, there are at least 10 million men who have masturbation, if you will, orgasms per day because of Beyonce's dominatrix status, and it's been sold by the Jewish entertainment media people to the world, not as soft porn, but as acceptable porn, because not everybody enjoys sex the traditional Victorian way, but as a dominatrix. And the videos put out there by her husband, Beyonce, that there are at least 10 million masturbation orgasms around the world of imaginary sex with this woman. And the thing I would think that Louis Claude would have a problem with, or any other man would have a problem with that many men will be charging it to your wife every night. I mean, what does that make her when you get in bed with her? That tonight 10 million other men gonna get in bed with her as well? But you know, we're living in a very, very, if you will, anti-Bible, anti-God, anti-truth environment. And my statements are not going to change our circumstances. That they're only going to get worse. But she's not the queen of soul, maybe the queen of sex, but she certainly is no Billie Holiday. She certainly is no Aretha Franklin, but she's got the money. She's living in an $88 million house out in Bel Air, and they just awarded her the most, if you will, accomplished Grammy winner in history. And so her combined talents have brought her to this point. But I think there's an audience out there who would like to have their coat pulled, that you would allow me to say the truth that I'm speaking. And it's just truth. I don't know if maybe there are men out there who have been involved with dominatrix. I don't see a whip in her hand. I don't see a whipping in Beyonce's hand. I think that would be a little bit overboard, because young boys watch it and young girls do as well. And this could very easily, with that kind of gapping of the goodie, this could very easily draw young girls towards the center portion of her body. And again, if this offends you, I apologize. I don't mean to do that. And for those of you who do the algorithms on Facebook and YouTube, If I can't say this, then what is permitted to say? What am I permitted to say? Only the things that you approve of. I've not used the F-bomb, which a lot of people use all the time on your algorithms. You know, I've not pointed up anything that most people who have any history of the history of sex understand what a dominatrix is. And this is the epitome of dominatrix, if you will, sexuality. At this point, I rest my case. I'm James David Manning, everybody. I am the Lord's servant.